Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Maulina Ayu Agustin. I'm from 7th semester. This video was made to fulfill the mid-semester exams assignment from the Literature for Children course. In this video, I will tell you about one of the Nathaniel Hawthorne's works entitled The Paradise of Children. This story was published in 1967. Long ago, there was a boy named Abby Matthews who didn't have a best friend until he met a girl called Pandora. The first time Pandora went to Abby Matthews' house, she noticed a great box. And almost the first question she put to him after crossing the threshold was, "Abby Matthews, what have you in the box?" "That's a secret," answered Abby Matthews, "and you must not ask any question about it. The box was left here to be kept safely. I do not myself know what it contains." "But who gave it to you?" asked Pandora, "and where did it come from?" "That is a secret too," replied Abby Matthews. "How vexing!" exclaimed Pandora, pouting. "Oh, come, don't think of it any more," cried Abby Matthews. "Let's go and play with the other children." Thousands of years since Abby Matthews and Pandora were alive, and the world nowadays is very different from in their time. Then everybody was a child. They needed no fathers and mothers because there was no danger, no trouble of any kind, and no clothes to be mended. And there was always plenty to eat and drink. It was a very pleasant life indeed. No jobs to be done, no schoolwork to be studied. There was nothing but games and dancing and singing and laughter. For what was most wonderful of all, the children never quarreled and cried or sulked. The truth is, those ugly little winged monsters, called troubles, which are now almost as numerous as mosquitoes, had never yet been seen on the earth. It is probable that the very greatest annoyance that a child had ever experienced was Pandora's vexation at not being able to discover the secrets of the mysterious box. This was first only the faint shadow of a trouble, but every day it grew more and more. "Where can the box have come from?" Pandora continually kept saying to herself. "And what in the world can be inside it?" One day she begged Abby Matthews to tell her more about how the box came to be in his house. "It was just a laugh at the door," replied Abby Matthews, "by a person dressed in an odd kind of cloak, and a cap that seemed to be made partly of feathers, so that it looked almost as if it had wings. It had a curious walking staff. It was like two serpents twisting around a stick, and was carved so naturally that I, at first, thought the serpent were alive. He told me very sternly that until he comes back and gives permission, no one has any right to lift the lid of the box." Then, quite fed up of thinking about the box, Abby Matthews went out to play. Pandora, who had refused to go with them, was left gazing at the box. It was made of a beautiful kind of wood, so highly polished that she could see her face in it. The edges and corners were carved with most wonderful skill. There were figures of graceful man and a woman, and the prettiest children ever seen, surrounded by a tangle of flowers and leaves. Once or twice, as Pandora examined it, she fancied that she saw a face not so lovely, or something or other that was disagreeable. Nevertheless, on looking more closely and touching the spot with her finger, she could discover nothing of the kind. The most beautiful face of all was in the center of the lid. Pandora thought that had it been able to speak, it looked like just as if it would have said, "Don't be afraid, Pandora. What harm can be there by opening this box? Never mind that poor simple Abby Matthews. You are wiser than he, and have 10 times as much spirit. Open the box and see if you don't find something very pretty." The box was fastened by a very intricate knot of gold cord. There appeared to be no end to this knot, and no beginning. But Pandora was not to give up easily. She stood for a while, turning it this way and that, and murmured herself, "I really believe that I begin to see how it was done." I'm sure that if I undid it, I could it up again afterward. She took the golden knot in her finger and was soon busily engaged in attempting to undo it. And while the bright sunshine came through the open window, as did likewise the merry voice of the children playing at distance, and perhaps the voice of Epimetheus among them, Pandora stopped to listen. What a beautiful day it was! Would it not be wiser if she were to let the troublesome knot alone, and think no more about the box, but run and join her playfellows and be happy? All this time, however, her fingers were half unconsciously busy with the knot, and just then, by the merest accident, she gave the knot a kind of twist. The gold cord untwined itself as if by magic, and left the box without a fastening. Suddenly Pandora seemed to hear the murmur of small voice within. "Let us out, dear Pandora. Pray let us out." "What can it be?" thought Pandora. "Is there something alive in the box? Maybe I should take a peep, just one peep, and then the lid shall be shut down as safely as ever. There cannot possibly be any harm in having just one little peep." As Pandora raised the lid, the cottage grew very dark and dismal, for a black cloud had swept quite over the sun and seemed to have buried it alive. There had for a little while past been a low growling and muttering which all at once broke into a heavy peal of thunder. But Pandora, heeding nothing of all this, lifted in the lid nearly upright, and looked inside. It seemed as if a sudden swarm of winged creatures brushed past her. She heard Epimethus' footsteps returning, and he cried out as if he were in pain. "Oh, I'm stung, Pandora. Why have you opened this wicked box?" Pandora let fall the lid and, starting up, looked about her to see what had befallen Epimetheus. Thundercloud had so dark the room that she could not very clearly discern what was in it. But as her eyes grew more accustomed to imperfect light, she was a crowd of ugly little sheep with bat's wings, looking horribly spiteful and armed with terribly long stings in their tails. It was one of these that had stung Epimetheus, nor was it a great while before Pandora herself was stung, and she too began to scream in pain. The ugly thing that had made their escape out of the box were the whole family of earthly troubles. There were evil passions, there were a great many species of cares, there were more than 150 sorrows, there were disease in a vast number of miserable and painful shapes. There were more kinds of nothingness than it would be of any use to talk about. And now the evil trouble flew out of the windows and doors, to pester and torment the children all over the world, who from that moment on began to grow old and die. Meanwhile, Epimetheus sat down silently in a corner while Pandora flung herself upon the floor, sobbing as if her heart would break. Suddenly there was a gentle little tap on the side of the lid. It sounded like the tiny knuckles of your hands, knocking lightly, playfully on the side. "Let me out," came a sweet voice. "I'm not like this wicked creature that have sting in their tails. They are no brothers and sisters of mine, as you would see at once if you were only to get a glimpse of me. Come, come, my pretty Pandora, I'm sure you will let me out." Shall I lift the lid again?" whispered Pandora to Epimetheus. "Just as you please," replied the boy. "You have done so much mischief already, that perhaps you may as well to do a little more one other trouble. And such a swarm as you have set adrift about the world can make no very great difference." So the two children again lifted the lid. Out flew sunny and smiling the little personage, and hovered about the room, throwing a light wherever she went. She flew to Epimetheus and laid the least touch of her finger on the inflamed spot where the trouble had stung him, and immediately the anguish it was gone. Then she kissed Pandora on the forehead, and her hurt was cured. "Who are you, beautiful creature?" inquired Pandora shyly. "I'm called Hope," answered the sunshiny figure. "I was packed into the box to make amends to the human race for that swarm of ugly troubles, which was destined to be let loose among them. Never fear, We shall do pretty well in spite of them all. And stay with us as Epimetheus, forever and ever, as long as you need me, said Hope. And that will be as long as you live in the world. I promise never to desert you. And she never has. From the story gives an important message to the reader through these two characters, Epimetheus and Pandora. From the character of Epimetheus, we learn that as human beings, we must have a sense of responsibility within us. This responsibility will be useful in the future to prove that we as human beings can be trusted. While Pandora's character makes us learn that we need to obey rules. Rules are made so that we do not cross the line, so that we do not face something bad in the future. That's all from me. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.